What's going on, Guardians? It's Tizzle here, and in this video I'll be showcasing one of the strongest stasis builds you can have on Hunter. Now, full disclosure, I am making this build before the season launches, but don't let that dissuade you from the power that this build provides. I played with it extensively in Season of the Wish, doing a solo Grandmaster with it and multiple Wave 50 Legend Onslaught runs, and it's incredibly strong. And with the artifact perks coming this season and the addition of Frost Armor to the Stasis kit, it's primed to be the strongest it's ever been. You can literally get your grenade back in just a few seconds with this build in the right scenarios. It's crazy. And that is before even adding in artifact mods, but when we do pair it with some artifact mods, then it totally takes this build to the next level, so let's jump into it. The build centers around the exotic gloves Renewal Grasps. They have the armor perk Depths of Duskfield. Your Duskfield grenades have a much larger effect radius. Allies inside the Duskfield gain Frost Armor, and targets inside the area deal reduced damage. The Destiny Data Compendium says that enemies deal 50% less damage when in these dusk fields, and that you gain a stack of Frost Armor roughly every second. So this is an extremely easy way to get Frost Armor, which gives us numerous benefits. You can go up to 5 stacks, and this gives us 4.5% per stack, or 22.5% at max stacks. And then if you want, Whisper of Rhyme can take this up to 8 stacks for 36% damage resistance, so it's quite strong. Onto the aspects, the first one we really want to run is Touch of Winter. This gives us improved Duskfield grenade size, and it spawns a crystal in the middle, which is really important for our grenade regeneration, which I will touch on in a bit. The other aspect we want to run is Grim Harvest. This aspect got a glow up in final shape, and now it still does what it used to, which is make stasis shards when you defeat frozen or slowed enemies. And if you didn't know, stasis shards will grant you and your fire team melee energy, so it's very strong. But now, collecting stasis shards also gives you Frost Armor. Small stasis shards grant 1 stack of Frost Armor, and large ones grant 3 stacks. So the basic premise of the build is to throw a Duskfield grenade and freeze everything, and then kill those enemies to make stasis shards, which will give you Frost Armor and melee energy. Your Withering Blade melees can then also slow and freeze enemies for even more stasis shards, and the loop continues. But the fragments are what really feed into the ability spam of this build. So the first one that I like to run is Whisper of Fissures. This increases the size and damage of the burst when you shatter a crystal or frozen target. Obviously with this build we're freezing everything, so we will get a lot of uptime on this one. Next is Whisper of Durance. This just makes our Duskfield grenades last longer, and the slow applied by them also lasts longer. Again, since we are constantly using Duskfield grenades with this build, that really helps us. Next is Whisper of Shards. Shattering a stasis crystal temporarily boosts your grenade regen rate. Shattering additional stasis crystals increases the benefit of this effect. So this gives us a whopping 500% increase to our grenade regeneration, meaning we can get a super short grenade cooldown. That is why Touch of Winter is so crucial, because it puts a stasis crystal in the middle of our dusk field, so then when you break it, you get a massive grenade regen reduction. The buff lasts for 5 seconds when you shatter 1 crystal, but if you shatter more, it adds 5 more seconds, so you can keep shattering stasis crystals and pretty much have constant ability uptime on this one. Headstone weapons are also great for this, but I will touch more on that in a bit. But yeah, if you can keep shattering stasis crystals, then your grenade regen will be super fast. Duskfield grenades at base have a 1 minute and 31 second cooldown, which is the lowest of all the stasis grenades, and with tier 10 discipline this can go down to only 45 seconds. But then with all the things in this build helping us, like I said, we can get our grenade cooldown to just a few seconds. And speaking of the tier 10 discipline, for this build you really only need high discipline and 100 resilience, and then you can spec the rest out how you see fit. The next fragment also helps a lot with that grenade cooldown, and that is Whisper of Torment. You gain grenade energy each time you take damage from targets, and then having Frost Armor increases the amount of energy gained. So there is a 1 second cooldown between energy gains. So for instance, if you are getting beamed by an Ogre Eye Blast or a Colossus Machine Gun, you aren't going to get your grenade in half a second. But it's still a nice fragment to run. It gives you a chunk of 7% grenade energy without Frost Armor and 12% with Frost Armor. The fragment does give -10 to discipline, but in my opinion, it's well worth it. And that brings us to the final fragment. Now the first 4 are mandatory to increase your grenade uptime as much as possible, but the last one is optional. So I like to run Whisper of Rending, which allows your primary weapons to deal more damage to stasis crystals and frozen targets. I already talked about the benefits of shattering stasis crystals, so this allows you to do it quicker and easier, which is really huge for me. It does 100% increased damage to crystals and 50% more to frozen targets. And this works with the Revision 0 sniper rifle as well, because even in sniper form, the weapon is a primary, so it allows you to deal a huge chunk of damage when the stars align. So I like to run this for the ease of use in destroying crystals and the free damage to frozen enemies. And like I have said a lot, you basically freeze the whole battlefield with this build, so you get a lot of mileage out of it. But if for some reason you don't want to run this, or you have a double special loadout or something, then you could also run Whisper of Rhyme. This increases the duration of frost armor from 9 seconds to 13, and the max stacks from 5 to 8, allowing for even more damage resistance. And because the artifact is so frost armor heavy, this will be a great fragment to run. And for an ease of use fragment that also gives plus 10 resilience and intellect, you could run Whisper of Conduction so that the stasis shards will come to you and you don't have to go and pick them up. So yeah, feel free to mix and match as you like to make it fit whatever playstyle you're going for. So that is it for the basic build, but now we have some mods to crank it up even further. On the helmet, I just go with Dynamo and Heavy Ammo Finder. Dynamo is great because you can dodge near enemies to get a chunk of super energy, and Heavy Ammo Finder is good in basically any situation. And speaking of dodging near enemies, I didn't mention it, but I do run Gambler's Dodge with this build to get a shuriken back when I dodge near an enemy. This allows me to apply slow and freeze even more often. And to help get our dodge ability back quickly, I run Bolstering Detonation on the gloves to give us class ability energy when I deal damage with a grenade. I also have Impact Induction for reducing my grenade cooldown when I deal damage with a melee. And lastly, we have Grenade Kickstart to get a chunk of grenade energy as soon as I throw my grenade, as long as I have Armor Charge. On the chest piece, I just run the Rainbow of Resistances, but you can tailor this depending on the content and enemies you're facing. On the boots, we have some really helpful mods. Innervation to give us grenade energy when we pick up an orb, and then Recuperation and Better Already. One gives us a chunk of health when we pick up an orb, and the other starts health regeneration when we grab an orb. The worst thing about Stasis is its lack of healing effects, so this completely mitigates that. If you aren't worried about survivability though, then you can swap these out for distribution or reduce all ability cooldowns when you grab an orb, and then just any other ability regenerating mod of your choosing. So I'm adding this in post-script, but I completely forgot about a super good leg mod, and that is Elemental Charge. Collecting a Fire Sprite, Ionic Trace, Stasis Shard, or Void Breach, or destroying a Strand Tangle has an escalating chance to give you Armor Charge. Because we have the Harvest aspect on and we're making so many Stasis Crystals, this will just feed into giving us Armor Charge, which helps our grenade kickstart and just makes our loop that much quicker. So after thinking about it, I'd probably get rid of Better Already and run Elemental Charge instead. And lastly, on the class item, we have Bomber to reduce our grenade cooldown when we dodge, Distribution to reduce all our ability cooldowns when we dodge near enemies, and Reaper so that we can make an orb with a kill after we dodge. You could run Powerful Attraction too if you wanted, but I like to have control of when I grab the orbs, because sometimes I will intentionally leave an orb on the ground and pick it up when I need a chunk of grenade energy or some healing. Where Powerful Attraction just sucks up all the orbs whenever I dodge, and lots of times I'm just dodging to get a melee back and don't necessarily want to be grabbing all the orbs. But again, you do you. With this mod setup, you get very quick grenade cooldowns. You throw a grenade, which activates Grenade Kickstart for a chunk of energy. Then you throw a melee to proc Impact Induction for even more grenade energy. Dodge near an enemy to get your melee back, proccing Dynamo for super energy, Distribution for all ability energy cooldowns, and Bomber for even more grenade energy. Meanwhile, you kill a frozen enemy to make a Stasis Shard for frost armor and even more melee energy, and then shatter a crystal from your Duskfield to proc Whisper of Shards, and just like that, you have a grenade back. It is a really good gameplay loop. And if you want more orb generation, then you could run a Siphon mod for your weapons in place of Dynamo or Heavy Ammo Finder. The choice is yours, but I find Reaper works well, and if you are playing with others, they will also be making orbs. Onto weapons, when I initially made this build back in April, I liked using Wishkeeper. This bow suspended enemies, and the theme around my build was locking down the battlefield. So whatever wasn't slowed or frozen, I would then suspend with the bow. But there is no strand synergy in the new artifact, and Wicked Implement is set to be a monster. And on top of that, we have Anti-Barrier Scout Rifle, which is crucial. This build can slow and freeze with ease, so that handles both unstops and overloads just with your abilities. So Wicked Implement with Anti-Barrier will round out your champion stunning capability and leave the rest of your weapons open to use what you like. It has Headstone if you have the Catalyst, and any Headstone weapon is great in this build because precision kills will make a crystal, and I've already talked lots about the benefits of shattering crystals. The weapon itself can now stack slow and cause targets to freeze, so that's amazing. And then the Stasis Shards overflow the magazine so you never have to reload. The synergy is just off the charts. You could also run a special weapon here and use any weapon with Chill Clip for more Stasis synergy. Rocket sidearms are getting a nerf to their reserves, but they will still be extremely strong. Indebted Kindness with Volt Shot is a monster in Onslaught, and the artifact has a mod called Trace Evidence which will allow kills on jolted targets to make an Ionic Trace. And Ionic Traces give you tons of ability energy, and they will also grant you armor charge if you have a potion to boost it. So this will give you more grenade kickstart to help you even more. It's a great pairing. In the heavy slot, if you want ad clear, I recommend Quillem's Terminus with Headstone. It's a stasis machine gun, and having Headstone is very powerful like I mentioned. If you don't need more ad clear, then maybe the world drop grenade launcher Typhon GL5. My roll has Demo, which is obviously perfect for this build, and then Explosive Light, which is extremely strong. And grenade launchers also have artifact synergy. Kinetic impacts will let them deal even more damage, and concussive reload will weaken bosses and champions, so that's obviously very strong. Served Cold is an artifact mod that grants class ability energy when you pick up stasis shards, so this could be good. And if you're running new season weapons with the Dark Ether Reaper origin trait, then Conductive Cosmic Crystal will allow them to deal more damage to stasis debuffed enemies. Brain Freeze makes frozen combatants slow combatants that aren't already frozen, though with this build, basically everything will be slowed or frozen anyways, so you probably don't need this one. But it's worth mentioning. The Twid calls it Crystallized Autoloader, but I think it's actually Hail the Storm. This is a must run. Shattering Stasis Crystals damages and slows targets, and when boosted, it will deal increased damage. This was on the artifact in Season of the Wish, and was a staple in my Stasis builds. Crystalline Converter will allow your Stasis melee to make crystals equal to the number of Frost Armor stacks that you have, which is pretty insane if you ask me. This build is going to go absolutely ham with this artifact perk. And then we have Wind Chill, which will give you Frost Armor for rapid precision hits, which if you're running Wicked Implement is something you will be doing a lot. This artifact is insane for this build. Like I said, this build is capable of soloing GMs and clearing Legend Onslaught without any artifact help. So when we get all these synergies rolling, it's going to be crazy. I'm so happy that I didn't make this build video back in April, as this is truly its final form. And who knows, it may even get better in Act 2 and Act 3. Anyways, that's it for the video. Thanks so much for watching to the end if you're still here. It means a lot. I will post a Mobalytics link of the build down in the description. Clicking on the link and liking it on Mobalytics helps me out, so do your boy a solid and check it out. And leave a like and sub on this video too if you'd be so kind. I'm super pumped to bring you more awesome and powerful builds this season, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.